Okay, so this is one of the most recent papers. This is the English language paper from May 2025, which is quite recent actually. We will try our best to finish section A. I'm not gonna say that's a promise because it's gonna be quite a very long video, but we'll see if we can finish the whole thing. Let's see. Let's challenge ourselves. Okay, so here you go. We have section A. I wouldn't want this to be a speed run video, but also I would want it to be a speed run video because it's gonna be really long. But we will see. We will explain as we go through. Okay, the first question. This is um, section A. Remember, question 1 and 2 are simple retrieval questions. They will ask you a question, and you are supposed to know the answer to it. Okay, so I'll be writing over here. This is my paper. Um, okay, let's see. First, let's scan the paper a little bit. We have a present question, which we know how to write. Let's scan the paper. There is question 4 and 5, and then we have a described question. Very common pattern, question pattern. You'll always see a present and described question, and if your luck's bad, you will find 2 described questions. So that's good. You've got the compare question, the 15 marks. We'll do that if time allows. Um, this year or this time, the section B was about a speech. You see, give a talk to encourage your peers to visit new places. So if it's an informal speech, speeches do come often. So this year they gave speech, which is all right, not bad. And then you have section C. Write a story or two entitled "The First Impression." Okay, we don't need to worry about section B and C. We'll just stick to um, section A. Okay. One of the first things we see is this question number 1. Let's see. Using lines 2 and 10, 2 to 10, identify one thing the narrator sees. So one of the things he's going to see. Now let's go to the question. There's a question. Beautiful. So what is the title? Look at the title. The title is Salmon Fishing in the Yemen. Yemen is a country. It's in the Middle East, I believe. It is in the Middle East. So this is about salmon fishing. All right. So it said 2 to 10. Line number 2 up until 10. So your answer lies somewhere over here. You're going to find the answer, you're going to retrieve it and just write it in your own words. The landscapes, we are here at Yemen at last. The landscapes are breathtaking, towering cliffs, golden in the sunlight, and the purple in the shade. A lot of description. Deep valleys, known as wadids. Is that how you? I don't know. Wadids slash as if with a giant knife. A lot of stuff. So one of the first things we just noticed, you don't even have to read the whole thing. This is the whole paragraph you have to read. But if you are an astute individual, you will find your answer right in the very beginning. There you go. One of the landscapes were beautiful. They were breathtaking. So the first answer to our question is going to be 1. The landscapes were breathtaking. That's as simple as that. You don't want to waste time in these little questions because we have other stuff to deal with. Okay. In lines 38, 36 to 42, the narrator describes a village in the Mount of Heraz. I think that's how you pronounce it. So he describes, or she describes, whoever the hell they are, they describe something about the village. State one point he makes about the village. Well, 1 point he makes about the village. Let's go. Let's find lines 32 to 46. Where is 32 to 46? Over here. This is probably like from here up until somewhere there. Yeah, something like that. Rough estimation. That's the line you have to peruse. Don't read them, just peruse, scan your eyes. I pass through the grassy fields, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Look for the word village, somewhere village. Do we see anything? We found Giant's grave and alliteration, but that's not something we can talk about. 32 to 46. Okay. Anything else? We don't even see any village here, do we? Um, the lines were again. Let's check that. The lines. I think I'm in text two, aren't I? I was in text two. Yep, I was in text two. Oh my god! Don't make that mistake, guys. Um, there you go. Exactly. I was in text two. That's why we couldn't find anything. We drove up the track to the village. There is a track to the village. That's an interesting thing, right? It's like there is a path that goes to the village that leads you to the village. That's a good thing. Fortified. What's fortified? Not fortified. It's fortified. Fortified means it's like how would I want to explain it? It's like very protected. It's like very protected. It's guarded, and it's like there are defenses around it. It's like a fort. You know what a fort is? It's like a castle. Around it is lies very what do you want to call it? A lot of defenses and whatnot. So it's a very protected village, which is interesting. So we could say we could we found fortified. It's fortified. We said there's a track. So let's just say the village was fortified. The village was fortified. There you go. Two marks. Yes, 2 marks. Easy. You don't want to waste marks. You don't want to waste time over here. These are very simple questions. You would want to just get these things done as fast as you can. Now we're going to move on to question three. Now, one of the things I noticed is that one of the things you should notice is that it's a present question, but then it talks about his experience. This is one of those questions. Where's my water? This is one of those questions where you have to kind of improv. You can't stay true to the script. And I'll tell you what it is. Just give me a moment. Um, what I mean is, normally, when we see the term present, the first thing that comes in our mind is CSR. And we would look for credibility. Credibility. We would look for structure, and we would look for register. Now the problem here is you have to be really smart. You have to be really cautious. Is that here we'll talk about how he kind of like describes his experience, presents his experience. Now, if you were to go back to we know the question. I'm going to do something. I'm going to copy this question so I don't have to go back and forth. Copy, paste, and get that thing away, out of the way. There you go. Beautiful. So now let's go back to the text one. Now, notice something. Normally, when you have a CSR question, you would expect there to be subheading so that you can write in structure. You would expect there to be credibility. You would expect there to be express opinion, facts, stats, tricolon, you name it. But I hope you noticed by now that this is a more of a described question. The questions where we use the term EEA, expectation, experience, and afterthought. And this is where some of the students really fumbled. Some of them thought that this would, you don't really have to focus on word analysis, language development, perspective understanding just because it's a present question. But if you look at the question style, you would notice that this is actually a described question. So let's see. Why is my mouse not working? There you go. Let's see how we can write it. For the sake of time, we're not going to read the whole thing, but I think we might have to read the whole thing. I can't go up. Okay, let's look at the title. Salmon fishing in the Yemen. So, salmon fishing in the Yemen. The title is interesting, maybe. It just tells you literally what you need to know. There isn't much to write about. There isn't any interesting thing going on, no alliteration, no question mark, no DIY type question. So we can't really start with it. But you look at the very first line, it's a one sentence paragraph, and you see there is this thing, we are here in the Yemen at last. Now, which is interesting. They keep saying Yemen with the word the as if there is only one Yemen. But I don't know why they do that. We can start with this paragraph. Notice this is a very beautiful paragraph. It kind of highlights the beautiful cultural thing that makes Middle East interesting. Look, it says the landscapes are breathtaking, towering cliffs. The word towering means something really tall, as if like that's literally what it means. That are golden in the sunlight, and purple in the shade. Deep valleys known as wadis, slashed as if with a giant knife, cutting thousands of feet between sheer rock walls with an occasional thread of water at the bottom, surrounded by date palm. This is where you kind of get the Middle Eastern vibe. Date palm, gravel plains that are an endless expanse of dull. You see how long this is. They started right over here, and look, this whole thing is one sentence. A huge information dump, lots of description going on, pathetic fallacy. You would like to say, you would really want to describe all of these. Endless expanse, an alliteration, endless expanse, white crust of the salt falls with the moist, where moisture beneath the sand leaches. Wow, this is so beautiful. But can we say anything tantalizing? Tantalizing glimpse. Tantalizing is something. It's like mocking almost. The word tantalizing means something mocking. You would say the job is very tantalizing. It's daunting. It's mocking you as if. So they use a very beautiful word. We can definitely talk about that. Um, one trip. Okay, so we've read the whole thing. We're definitely going to talk about the fact that the landscapes are breathtaking. The descriptive language the writer uses, it really shows the admiration. It shows how beautiful the landscape is. The word breathtaking, we can talk about that. Towering cliffs is definitely something you want to talk about. And then golden in the sunlight. So let's see how we can write an answer. We can start an answer. Um, we are going to say for now that the introduction is as such. Um, should we? Can we say anything else about the introduction? Well, for now, let's start with this beginning paragraph and let's see how it goes. So, what's the writer's name or the narrator's name? His name is Paul Tourday. Paul Tourday. Okay. At the beginning. Should we say at the beginning? Fine. At the or we say at the start. Paul uses descriptive language. That's a type of beautiful thing you want to say. Descriptive language. Oh my God! Here goes my language to show admiration and awe, admiration, appreciation for the natural scenery, the um, scenery that Yemen had to offer. Right now, we're gonna use some of the words like breathtaking, towering cliffs, golden in the sunlight. Right, we're gonna use all of these. So we're gonna say the phrase breathtaking. Then we can say towering cliffs and what was it? Golden, right? Golden in the sunlight. In the sunlight. What do they all do? What do all these things do? They create a scene. They create a scene that is very wonderful. And it kind of like gives you a very vivid imagination of how the scene looks like, right? It creates a sense of, let's say, of wonder and triggers vivid imagination in the readers. in the readers, showing how impressed Paul is. That's not how you pronounce Paul. Paul. That's not how you pronounce Paul either. Paul is, right? And I don't know if you knew this, that whenever you have um, words that describe any color, like golden, and then we saw the word white over here, and then you saw the term blue, right? And then do we have any other color here? Any other color? Um, these colors, what do? These are color imagery, right? They these colors kind of like let's helps you imagine how beautiful the thing is. Like when I say the diamond was yellow, when I say the diamond is beautiful, you can imagine, oh well, the diamond is beautiful. When I say, well, the diamond was transparent, it had this very emerald greenish color to it, then you can really imagine how the thing looks like. And then if I say it has, this shine to it and this little sprinkle of glitter on it, it helps you imagine it. Like at this point, you even know how the diamond looks like, right? So these color imagery, the use of the use of color, or you can say color if you want, British and American, English, the use of color imagery like golden and purple, and then do we had any other color here? White, is that something we can really talk about? Where was it? I can't find it. Dull brown, white crust. Um, any other color? Can we peruse through and find any color? We found a Manhattan. No. So color, color. Again, golden. You got no, that's not garden. Okay, so yeah, we can just say golden, purple, white, right? What do they do? The use of color imagery um, makes the scene more vivid and clearer for the readers to imagine. Also, making the scene more memorable. Memorable. There you go. Okay. What else can we think about? Can we say anything else? We can. I will really want to use this. Um, give this particular word. I want to include it. I really want to include this. Um, let's see what we can say. The word tantalizing basically means something that is. Let's read it again. One of the three caught tantalizing glimpse of the sea. Tantalizing, tantalizing. Um, we can. Should we? What do you think? I think we will include it. The tantalizing a glimpse of sea of sand. Again, we get a sibilance. The beginning of empty quarter of a million square miles of inhabited desert. Wow, this number here kind of tells you how big and vast the desert is, and it's inhibited, meaning it's isolated. Nobody lives here. Okay, nobody lives here. Um, let's go and add this over here. Let's review the color of the color image makes it memorable. We can add a little bit more here if you want. You can say it um, makes it seem more memorable. Let's change this. Say also making the scene, um, also highlighting. Let's say scene. Let's just change this. It sounds really boring and mundane. If anything, monotonous. So let's change this. Say highlights the well these all of these things kind of like highlight the richness of the desert, so we can say richness, and it's very vibrant, isn't it? Vibrancy of wow, it just predicted my text. Vibrancy of the city, right? We can say that. Definitely we can say that. Now we can say this creates uh, this makes the image of the city more clearer for the readers to imagine. To imagine. And also, if you can imagine, if you the writer is amazed, he wants you to kind of feel that amazement as well. So he's giving you a little chunk of it. And if you feel amazed, you're all feeling amazed. We're all vibing together. You can also kind of appreciate how beautiful the city is, and imagine the readers make them make them appreciate as well. You could just say that appreciate it, or just clearer for the readers to imagine and appreciate the scenes. That's a very vague way of saying. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's go on. Let's move and see. One of the things he said over here in the very first paragraph is that, do you notice? It said that the valleys, deep valleys, slashed as if with a giant knife. It's like, rocks, exactly. Here, look. Feed between sheer rocks with an occasional thread of water. If you have rocks being like sliced through the middle, it's gonna fall, and that's not a good thing. That's, if anything, that's a dangerous thing to happen. You wouldn't want that to happen in the desert. So that's actually a very dangerous thing. Um, and if you notice, this is a simile as, or no, he's comparing it. No, that's not a simile. Okay. Anything else? Slashed knife. So this scene over here, giant knife, it's really creating a very dangerous image in your head, and you can tell there's a really dangerous thing to happen. So you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want that to happen to you. So we can say that when describing the desert, Paul um, portrays, forget the spelling, I'll fix it later, portrays some aspects of the desert being dangerous. And the simile he used, the simile as, what was it? Here's a simile we're going to use. The wadi slashed as if. This is the simile, as if, with a giant knife. That is not a simile. This is a simile, as if. You're comparing it with the giant knife. As if, what? Slashed. We can just say this. Slashed as if with a giant knife. What does it do? A knife is dangerous in itself, in and of itself. If you say the knife is giant, that makes that thing sound even scarier, right? So it kind of like creates this even more scarier scene. So it just like it creates a powerful and yet a powerful yet scary scenario, or just scene for the readers to imagine, right? What does it do? What does it do? Just if you notice, this is actually a type of contrast, because a moment earlier the writer was describing the scenes to be beautiful as if it was like some sort of like paradise or something, and all of a sudden there's rocks cutting in halves and falling from God knows where. This is a contrast, and again it shows that nature is beautiful yet scary at the same time. Some aspects of nature is beautiful and alluring. Some aspects of it is just petrifying. And that's what he's basically doing here. So we can say this. Image. This also. We can say shines light on the fact that nature is both beautiful and harsh at the same time. Right? I wanted to say heinous, but let's not say that word, because that word would mean very negative thing. So we wouldn't want to do that right now. Okay. Next, let's use the word analysis of tantalizing. Where do we see the writer using tantalizing? On the trip, we caught tantalizing glimpse of the sea of sand, a sibilant. That's not going to help us in any way, but we can say later. Later, he writes. Later, the writer The writer writes. What does he write? That they. What did they see? What was it? Caught tantalizing glimpse. Caught tantalizing. You can spell that with a Z. It's fine. Tantalizing glimpses of a sea of sand. Now um there are a lot of meanings for tantalizing. It could mean a lot of things. One of the things tantalizing means, it could mean daunting. It could mean something that is very like, it's like calling you in a way. It's like um, um, it's like temptation, you know. It's calling you. That, I think that would be a very good meaning over here, because um, tantalizing. Yes, that would go over here. So we can say the word. Now here comes the word analysis. The word, beautiful part. I love word analysis. Tantalizing connotes to a longing, or a call or temptation. And the temptation normally is not a good thing. Temptation in itself is not a good thing. Um, So now we're going to connect this. We give a word analysis. Now we have to connect this. What is so tempting? What is calling them? What is longing them? What is the writer longing for? Well, it's nature that's calling writer. The writer sees the sea of sand, the sand sprinkling under the beautiful sunlight, as he described previously, being, what was the word? Golden. That's really beautiful, right? So that's what he's saying. As if the beauty, or as though, that would be better, as though the beauty of um, the desert wishes to win the writer's heart. Writer's heart. It's trying its best to kind of like, you know, look or appear appealing. That's what it's trying to do. And appear appealing. That's a beautiful illustration. Just came up with it. That's good. And appear appealing, so that the writer sinks in its beauty for longer, right? When something is beautiful, let's say, this is a personification. All this is also a personification, because the desert it's not a living thing. So how can something that is not living thing intentionally display its beauty to something, such that the person who's seeing the beauty feels tempted? I don't want to say the other word. It's going to sound inappropriate. But, when you see something very beautiful, you feel tempted, you know? And I would want you to sit down and see me for longer. That's what the desert would want to do. So if you want, you could say that this is a personification that would, take you to another tangent. Let's not go into that. Um, anything else? No, so this is a very good, we can just say this is good enough. This is really good enough. So let's move on to the other paragraphs. Let's move on to these guys. We haven't really done anything over here. Let's see how this paragraph goes. And as a town is as wonderful as the desert, the towns are as wonderful as the desert. Another simile: the towns are as wonderful as the desert. So he's saying that the deserts are beautiful, the towns are beautiful as well. From the desert driving towards the town through haze and dust, it is as if one is approaching Manhattan. Manhattan is a city in New York. Not it's New York is divided into three sections, and one of the sections is Manhattan. Many stored towers, houses. What is that? I can't see. Oh, houses white with plaster that was from a distance. From a distance looked like skyscrapers. Poke above the walls of ancient fortifications, or seem to which are on the edge of brown cliffs. He's basically describing how the buildings look like, saying poke above the walls. The skyscrapers poke above the walls. That's you could say that's a hyperbole. You could say that's a personification. I would like to say this is a personification, because, if you're very tall and long, you can really poke over things that are short. as if you're above them and they're somehow not, they're not, they're they're below you basically. They are beautiful and unlike anything I've ever seen or heard of. That's a very bold statement. We'll talk about this. Once once one is in a town and it is a din of shouting voices, a weight of color, and oh my god, we cannot skip this. We can't skip this. Nope, we can't skip this. Um, it's a beautiful thing. Unimaginable smells of grains and spices. Again, it's highlighting the Middle Eastern cultures. It's kind of like signifying how the Yemenis are and whatnot. And then you turn the corner, and there's a garden hidden away between the houses. That's actually a beautiful thing, right? It's a beautiful thing. Um, so I think that's gonna be beautiful. So let's say Paul's experience in forget about the typo, we'll fix that later. Paul's experience in the towns were as magical as it was in the desert, right? We can say that, you know, desert. Then he used a simile somewhere over here, as if one is approaching Manhattan. Okay, as if one is approaching Manhattan. Why does the writer say that he's approaching Manhattan? Well, there could be many things. I would like to see it as if Manhattan is a very beautiful. If you didn't know, lots of Hollywood movies are filmed in Manhattan. One of them, I think, was Spider Man. So it's a very beautiful city. Is a very beautiful part of New York. So maybe that's what he's trying to say. Like if anybody is going to Manhattan, they'll be jumping in joy and be all bubbly and whatnot. So perhaps that's what the writer is trying to suggest, that if you're going to the United States, it will be as happy as you could imagine. So that's probably what he's trying to say. We could say that. We could say that. He uses a simile as if one is approaching again. Ignore the Manhattan, right? The simile conveys what? Surprise. My keyboard is so sticky. Oh my god. Surprise. Right, what else is it doing? One of the things you might wonder, and I get it why the writer said this. You would expect these places to be kind of like old fashioned, right? And the designs are from the 1800s or 1900s, but the city looks as modern as it does in Manhattan. That's what he's trying to do. There you go, bingo. Surprise, showing that despite the cities being in the middle, they didn't say this, but we can say middle of desert, desolate desert. You could use it alliteration, desolate deserts, deserts. Their infrastructures, and what do you want to say? Their infrastructures. I need some water. Their infrastructures and buildings. You could say. Want to say buildings? Their infrastructures. Let's just say infrastructures. Infrastructures are as grand and modern as it is in the United States or in the West. You don't have to say United States, just the West. There is this misconception, like, oh, people living in the desert are somehow old, uncivilized barbarians or something, cavemans. Well, that's what the writer's saying. No, technically, they live in skyscrapers. That's what he's trying to say, right? And then he goes on Where is it? Where is it? There it is. This is a list. This is a list. Do you guys notice? Sorry. Um, this is a very long list, but it's a list nonetheless. One town is blah blah blah. That's one part. A void of color, unimaginable smells of drains and spices. And when you turn the corner, so that is a list. So he's listing all this stuff. He's listing. So one of the things he lists is this over here. If you where was it? A din of shouting voices. So a din of shouting voices. So that's something we can talk about. That's something we can talk about definitely. If you don't know what din is like a loud noise. Like it's like a bustling. You go to a bustling street, bustling market, or bustling bazaar, and you'll see people just shouting and talking, chattering, and that's what the sound kind of tells you. The word din. So if you want, you can kind of like give a word analysis of that. So Paul lists. What does he list? Sensory images. I don't know if you guys know what sensory images are. You should know what sensory images are. Sensory images are basically um, they're basically like they're descriptions of stuff that kind of like tells you how things sound, taste, look. They're words or phrases that gives you those kind of information. So this is it's telling you how that place sounds, right? So sensory images, sensory images. When he says, when he says a din of shouting voices. What else? What else? A void of color. A void of color. Why am I saying void? What the heck? Void of color. What else? I think there was this unimaginable something. Unimaginable smells of drain and spices. I'm gonna copy that. I'm just gonna paste it. Spices, right? These are lists. And what do they all do? They all immerse but in the chaos of the active street. The street is active. Everybody's bustling, or you can say bustling street, not active. That sounds weird. Chaos. You can say bustling street of the town, right? And then you see this unimaginable smells of drains. I thought that was grains, but now it's not. Drains is literally what it sounds like. That's where the bad stuff goes in. I don't want to say it. So it's not a delightful smell. Drains are stinky. They are unpleasant. They're not really something you would enjoy. But then there's this contrast. Why would you say drains and spices? Spices is something good. Like you know the South Asian spices is really beautiful. Indian spices. One has to do with dirt and rubbish. The other has to do with food. This contrast kind of tells you that this place is both beautiful and weird at the same time. So you would want to say that the contrast of using spices and drains at the same time suggests the unpleasant and beautiful, unpleasant and beautiful smells that the town reeks of, you could say. I want to say that. Um, that the place overwhelms, you could say that the place overwhelms with over what? Overwhelms with. That's not how you pronounce overwhelms. That's how you pronounce overwhelms with. Another thing you can just say as a final note is that the town is the town is unique because because of its diversity. Diversity. Well, all of this was just on the basis of the first two paragraphs. Now let's move on to the other ones and see if we can. I don't think we will be able to finish the whole thing. We spent the first few days here touring in the country in the empty blah blah blah. Beginning of the dunes and the landscapes, sculptured sand, sculpted sands. Again, you get a beautiful sibilance. Dunes like low hills, long dunes like long fingers. What is he doing? He's describing, and we can see what dunes is. Oh, there you go. High sand. Yes, basically that's what I thought. Um, it's like different aspects of sand, I believe. He's describing a lot obliterated. We're seeing a lot of word. We can't talk about everything. We're looking for something that's worth talking about. Okay. We drove into the mountains alongside crumbling tracks of loose gravel, which is not good. This is a bad thing. Like I said, if you at the start, that's something you don't want to happen. You're traveling, and you look up at the sky and you see beautiful rocks falling on your head. That's not a good thing. Always with the precipitous slope on its slide, lurching up steep, winding winding roads alongside which it seems impossible any vehicle will travel. We find tiny villages. We found tiny villages. You know, the word "tiny" here kind of signifies how the villages lack population or something, or even how small the villages are. Perched at the foot of great cliffs, environment shadow. Again, you get to see a lot of these color things. Um, and what date palm fringe in the water's edges were brown skinned boys in their colored futas. Futas, a short skirt wrap around there. So I don't know what that is, man. I don't know what Yemenis do. I think it's like some sort of like ground you were on top. I don't know. Okay, nothing to really talk about here. We're gonna move on. The next day, we drove into the mountains of Harris. The mountains rise in huge ramparts and traced with slopes. Um, eat with the basic existence of millet and maize. Okay, that's that's good, I guess. Millet and maize. Huge shoulders of maize. Okay. Suddenly, the word suddenly here. What does the word suddenly kind of do? It creates a suspension, I guess. It does create suspension. Bright sun into the mist, thick mist. Okay. So we're going too far. I would really like to talk about this. So let's talk about this. One of the um, problems the writer faced whilst traveling or touring around, you can say that, touring around, was that, um, what was it? Loose gravels, you can say loose gravels came down their way, came down, rolling their way. And then what else? It said over here, lurches. Yes, lurching up steep wind. Lurching. What does the word lurching mean? Lurching means like those ghosts or something, just like lingering around. The lingering is not a good thing. It's an unsettling type of lingering. So it says lurching up to steep wind, blah blah blah. So what we can do over here is we can say that their weight. This shows that roads of the roads in the desert are uncertain and filled with risks. Risks. But again, we're going to say something. Even though there lies risks, it is those risks that make the desert merrier. Desert Mary, you want to say that just desert more beautiful, or you can say it is those risks that make the desert even more beautiful. That's a perspective, point I gave. You could if you want, you could change that. But I think it's a beautiful thing to say. Okay. Okay. So what else? What else can we say? We're writing a lot. And again, you see, we're not using this structure at all because, hey, there aren't any points, there aren't any subheadings, there aren't any informal or formal, so we can't really use this. So squid goes out the window. That's something you guys should have noticed. Okay. Can we say anything from this part? Definitely. From below, it is impossible for anyone to penetrate to the mountains on foot, let alone in a vehicle. But as we noticed before, cunning tracks. Ooh, tracks are cunning. Wow, personifications made their way around the side of huge cunning. So basically, showing the fact that the tracks are kind of like inauspicious. They are a bunch of inauspicious tracks. That's what it kind of again shows. Okay, what else? Let's talk about over here. I guess we can really say a lot of stuff. One of the things we can talk about is the village, how the writer describes the village. The villages are fortified. Again, it's weird for villages to be fortified. And what else? They say anything? Does he say anything? The villages. He said somewhere about permanent shadow. Again, that kind of um, shows some sort of like isolation, doesn't it? One of the things I told you guys a few moments ago was the fact that if something is fortified, you want it to be protected and far away from stuff. So one of the things we can see is that we can say the fact that Paul describes the villages near the tracks being tiny and, what did he say? Fortified. For Now let's describe the word fortified. The word fortified connotes to a building or infrastructure, infrastructure guarded by defense. The fact that they are tiny, again, kind of like signifying, everything the writer says has an effect. The fact that they are tiny shines light on the fact, or we said that a lot, so we can change that. Or signifies. Let's say it signifies that the village lacks population and is isolated from the rest of the world, or from the rest of the town, the rest of the town and cities. Right? That's something we can say. Correct? We can say that. Again, village soaring up into the mist, with another cliff above the village soaring up to the mist. Soaring up means what? What does it mean? Soaring up. It's like going up, like it's like those cartoons or stuff where you have like you plant a leaf and a leaf just rockets up. It grows so fast, like that's what it kind of means. So there is a lot of cliff. Again, you see the top of a cliff. Perhaps 100 what? Perhaps 100 tower houses stood on the top of a cliff. So he also mentions houses being on top of tall cliffs. That's something he says in his text. That's why I'm quoting it. It shows, a cliff is dangerous, and there being a house on top of a cliff it makes it dangerous. It makes it even more dangerous. Say that cliff falls, where are you gonna go? You're gonna go to God, basically. With another cliff above the village, that's even more dangerous. You have another cliff above the village soaring up into the mist. Now, that could be a hyperbole. Basically, it's very high. It's definitely not going to go up to the clouds or something. But again, it shows how dangerous. Why do we use hyperboles or exaggerations? It is to kind of prove a point. What did I write? And the writer, and why doesn't my mouse work? Hello, there you go. And the writer, or you can say, to make it worse, there is another clip. That's what we're gonna do. It looks so brilliant, isn't it? Now we're gonna describe the word soaring. The word soaring literally means, what does it mean? Something rising up to the sky at great speeds. Not snoring, man. Soaring. There you go. Means something that ascends to the heaven. You want to say heaven. Ascends high at great speed. That you don't have to even say great speed. It doesn't really have to be there. Soaring. It's just so high. It goes high. You crane your head up. It keeps going and going. God knows when does it end, right? Ascends. That ascends very high. Again, suggesting the villages are dangerous as they lie on cliffs that have a tendency to break off. We've seen some of the parts, like he said in the text, parts of the cliff coming up and breaking down and coming rolling down over them, like raining down of pebbles and rocks. So where does those rock come from? They are fractions of cliffs, and villages are on top of these cliffs. So that again shows how dangerous the place is. That's a good thing, not a good thing. No, I mean we're done with this, so that's a good thing. Oh, a few chickens. Wow. As if we traveled back in 100, as if we had traveled back in time 100 of years. Now there's a contrast. All of a sudden, the writer was speaking really. He was speaking with great what do you want to say? He was speaking with great enthusiasm when he was describing the village, when he was describing the desert. But now all of a sudden his description became so bland and shabby. It was as if we had traveled back in time hundreds of years. The streets were empty, um, but occasionally a child would peer at us from a darkened doorway. Darkened doorway. This alliteration kind of like signifies an ominous vibe, darkened doorway, like something's mysterious about the child, the way they would peek at the rider. A few chickens scattered before the wheels of our Land Cruiser, which I hope they don't get run over. We turned uphill, up another lane, and came to set a beautiful carved wooden gates set in high wall. Which okay, so then we gonna describe later on. The writer uses the simile, a lot of simile in this text, a lot of simile. But we'll want to talk about all of them. This simile, however, this simile, however, suggests something negative. If we go back in the past was very humble. There wasn't much going on in the past. Like in the 1800s, there weren't any cars. The streets were not developed. The cities, there were barely any houses standing tall. So that's something that shows negativity. So one of the things we can say is that this simile, and we want to do a good job explaining it. This simile um, suggests how the scenery changes from um, desert's beauty and tiny villages on cliffs to abandoned and empty roads, as if the writer time traveled to the past where things were much humble. The word humble means um, something of less stature, or at least when you say you're humble, you don't show arrogance. There isn't anything special going on. But sometimes we say um, humble beginnings. They started their life in a humble beginning or humble family. That means it's a family of low status, less. They are of the low caliber of people, right? They're not the high caliber. They're the low caliber people. That's what it suggests. So, as if the writer had time travel to the past where things were much humble. Why do we say that? We say that because, well, there isn't much going on. The scenery all of a sudden becomes, there were the writer just a few moments ago was seeing so many beautiful deserts and cliffs and blah blah blah, and all of a sudden it just becomes empty. The streets were empty, but occasionally a child will peer at us. The writer, or just say Paul. We've been saying writer for a long time. Paul says that occasionally they would be accompanied by a child. A child? Occasionally by children peering at them from darkened doorway. For what am I writing? Doorway. Now, the term here, the this phrase, the darkened doorway, kind of like creates an ominous, some sort of inauspicious scenario or something, right? So the alliteration, darkened doorway, creates an inauspicious um, setting. Again, signifying how the mood here shifts from excitement to somber. That's a good one. Somber is something depressing. A few chickens scattered before the wheels of our Land Cruiser. That sounds really cruel, as if he wants to kill them or something. Um, Again, you see this is a magical place. Well, um, inside the whitewashed walls. That is a very beautiful assonance. Was a garden of paradise. Now that is something to say. Garden of paradise. Now this kind of creates a spiritual serenity, doesn't it? Garden of paradise. Who says this? Like, this is more like a religious thing. Religion promotes the idea of garden of paradise or something like Eden Falls or something, right? Something like that exists. We hope something like that exists. So he kind of becomes spiritual all of a sudden, cool and again mysterious. Wow, cool and mysterious. That is a contrast. Cool and mysterious. Um, that's a contrast. But then at the same time, it kind of like creates a rhythm as well. Water rippled from a fountain, splashed over the edge of a basin, cascade. Oh, I love this word. Cascading into a marble channel. The word cascade basically means the motion of how waterfall basically flows through. It's this gentle and like this beautiful flow. It's as if nothing can interfere with this flow. It's just so smooth and crisp. That's what it kind of tells you. cascade into marble channels that formed a grid of running water. And so all of a sudden, this was a depressing paragraph, and now you see so many words and so many stuff being thrown at you. But this is a very good thing. He has a very good end. He's probably going to end it on a positive note. Palms and almond trees provided shade, and a spiky grass grew everywhere. With I'm not going to pronounce that. I'm not going to pronounce that. Whatever that is, climbing with the white walls, the wonder and euphoria. Oh my God, this is beautiful. Okay, let's get into it. This is the last paragraph for this particular text. Let's nail this down. Okay, so one of the way the writer ends, we see the writer ends on a on an optimistic and positive note. That's a statement we can say. Why do we say that? The writer describes the garden being, or as if saying the garden, the writer describes the, or you can say when the writer describes the garden, I want to bring in the spirituality. When the writer describes, forget about this typo, describes the garden, his tone shifts to somewhat spiritual. His tone shifts spiritually. Spiritually. He says, what does he say? Garden of paradise. Paradise. Right? He does that, doesn't he? It's a garden of paradise. Now somebody's getting religious, you know? It's been a roller coaster ride. All of a sudden, things became dark and depressing, and all of a sudden it's as if a piece of heaven came down. That's what he's trying to say. So that's what we're gonna say, a garden of paradise, as if what do you want to say? As if a piece of heaven itself came down, right? Employing religious imagery, employing how divine and serene the scene felt to him. When you connect something with paradise, that thing is definitely holy. That thing is precious, you know? That's why you signify it with the term, um, that's the thing you signify with the term uh, divine, right? Or like the Garden of Paradise. I think that is beautiful one, beautiful way to kind of like say that. All right, we are nearing down. We're nearing the end is nearing. Let's keep our wits about. Then what we can say is what else? The word cool and mysterious. It kind of like sets a a beautiful contrast. So we can say the descriptive words like cool and mysterious, right? What do they do? And oh, there was another one. There was what was it? I think it was someone over here. Water. Yeah, there we go. Water rippled from fontaine fontaine and splashed over the edge of the scene. I think that's a beautiful thing. Water rippled from a fontaine. You can say that. Water rippled from a fontaine. All of these descriptions creates a rhythm. That's not how you pronounce rhythm. Rhythm and contrasts the harsh. Um, the thing what we can do over here we can either say, um, initially when the writer described uh, the desert, right? One of the things, the way the writer described some parts of the desert was really dangerous. You know, and we did say that the villages were up there, gravel's falling here and there, rocks cutting into halves, and all of these kind of like signifies harshness and how dangerous the desert is. The fact that writer at the end uses such a positive description kind of contrasts the harshness of the weather. It's as if things were bad, the weather, the desert was bad, but the gardens that these villages have just makes this trip worth it. Even if there's a chance of a rock falling on my head, the writer is basically saying the scene was good. That's what we can say. Contrast the harsh nature of harsh nature of the deserts. We can definitely say that. The harsh, where's my, what's not, it doesn't work. Harsh nature of the desert, which she described previously. Described previously. Right? And these, are they in or are they gone? I think my class ended over there. Did it end? Yeah, it ended. Okay. Okay. Another thing, if you notice, these are plant names. Spiky grass everywhere with Lander and this guy. I don't know how to pronounce these things. Euphorbia, I think that's how you pronounce this. Euphorbia. I don't know how to pronounce these plants. I'm not an expert. I'm not someone who studied botany, so I don't know. But these are actually plants climbing white walls. What are these? These are like those grape-like trees that kind of like slither through surface and just grows on stuff. So we can say that. And to add more, the description of heavenly plants. You can say that heavenly plants. Heavily heavenly plants. Like I'm going to copy this whole thing and just I don't know how to pronounce them. This and these guys, right? These are the plant names. Phobia, right? What do? They further paint the scenario, the scene for the readers to imagine and take and sink in. His descriptions, last we're nearing down, so kind of like making our text sound more um more, what do you want to say, we're giving more of a perspective understanding over here. His descriptions reflects his fascination and awe and reflects, no, we said reflects once, and shines light on um shines light on every element of peace. His last phrase, it was, what was it? It was, it is a magical place. It is a magical place. Creates an impression that tells the readers that the experience was truly a piece of heaven itself. A memory that the writer You'll never forget. As if he walked into a completely different dimension. Completely different dimension. A lot of typos when I write. I normally don't focus on typos. That's how I write my books as well. When you have ideas, just write them down. Just jot your ideas down. And there's always your writings are not going to go away. You'll always have time. You will always have time to fix those writings and enhance them wherever it needs. But don't let those ideas that come in your head, like for a split second, dwindle away. Don't let that happen. And then we can give an overall remark, saying that overall, I normally don't do this, but you can give that. Overall, the writer. Do you notice the text was the question was narrator, but we're saying writer. It's something they won't cut marks for, but we're kind of used to kind of writing the word writer all the time. So maybe when you're writing the question, do keep that in mind. I just noticed it. Narrator. It's not a biggie. Don't worry. They're not gonna cut marks for it. It's a very stupid thing to cut marks for. Also, if you do kind of, if I don't know how you might confuse this, if you confuse the gender of the writer, they won't cut marks. Some students really make a fuss about this, like, oh my god, the writer was a guy and I wrote she. Well, they couldn't care less what you wrote. As long as your content and your writing is fine, they'll give you the marks. But yeah, those are some silly mistakes, not mistakes that they would penalize you for. Overall, we can write a last remark. Overall, we can say what? Let's think. What can we say? Overall, the writer um, presents Yemen as a land of what? Wonders and extremes. We can say that wonders. Oopsie. Wonders and extremes. We saw wild deserts. Wild deserts. We found chaotic towns. Din of shouting voices or something. Chaotic towns. Hidden and mysterious beauty. Mysterious beauty. Still got it wrong. Come on, man. That was a typo. Definitely that was a typo. Mysterious beauty. His journey shifts constantly, constantly from um, serene, serene. You could say from. I didn't call Siri. Why did that turn on? Constantly from serenity to danger and risks, right? But overall, his journey felt worth the while. His journey was worth the while. His journey was worth the while. This is one of the type of answers you could write. Definitely, there are more. I have not read the text. This is what I personally did in my exam. I didn't even know what my text was about. All I did was I read the first title. It was something I could write about. I read the first paragraph. I read the largest paragraph in the text. Surprisingly, here they don't have one. There was one this size. I read that. I read the let's say this is the last paragraph. I read the paragraph before it. Just scheme and scan it. I didn't read it technically, and I read the last paragraph very fast. I didn't even know what was in the text. Sometimes you can do that if the text is like something writable. Like for example, if it followed this CSR structure, this CSR method, this CSR format, or whatever the hell you want to call it. But this was a tricky text because it says present, and this is actually a very nice way to learn this. If you ever see the term present and is followed by not advice, not ideas, but the word experience, know that this is a disguised EEA type question. This is a disguised um, word analysis, those analytical type questions where you have to give lots of word analysis and language analysis, and most importantly, very like good perspective understandings, perspective writings and understandings in your text. We haven't really used you haven't really used squid that much, as in, what a device does, the inference and the development of the readers. That's not really focused over here. We're more interested in how the writer describes his text, his journey, pardon me, in um, in a foreign city that he's never been to, a foreign country. Yemen is a country. So yeah, that is the text for this. Time is scarce. Time does not allow us to continue with questions 6, 4, 5, 6, and 7. If we get time, we'll definitely go through those questions as well. Till then, bye bye. Take care.